On a Sunday evening in late autumn, Ellen Whitfield returned home from visiting a neighbour to find her dearest friend struggling with the clasp on the front gate, hands clumsy with her eagerness to leave. "It sticks in the heat," Ellen said. "Give it a kick." Harriet checked the street was empty, then hoisted her skirts and did as Ellen had suggested. She stumbled forward as the gate flew open. Ellen caught her around the waist and gave her a quick squeeze before letting her go. "If I had known you intended to come today, I'd have stayed in," she said. "Mrs. Davidson's heart is bad again, so I took some biscuits for the children. Then I felt obliged to sit with her for a while, and there are only so many things a person can say about the weather," she grimaced, "even on a revolting day like this." It was unseasonably warm for May, and the air was thick with humidity. Ellen bore dry heat without complaint, but this clammy weather made her temper spark, and the Davidsons' cottage was particularly airless. "Poor dears," Harriet said, eyes sad as she gazed across the Davidsons' house. "It must be hard for them. First their father, and now they'll probably lose their mother as well." "At that age, I thought my parents would live forever." Harriet frowned. "Yes." Ellen winced. "I'm sorry, Harriet, I didn't think." Harriet managed a weak smile. "Don't be. I don't expect people to avoid the subject forever. I'd rather they didn't, really. I'm sick of walking into a room and having everyone fall silent, only to start whispering the second I leave. She's the one who lost her whole family in that shipwreck. Like it's an exciting story they read in the paper, instead of my life. At least if you've something to say, you'll say it to my face." Ellen laughed. "It's not usually considered a talent, as my brother always reminds me." At the mention of William, Harriet's smile faded. That was odd. Could they have quarrelled? The very idea seemed unthinkable. Love made them blind to each other's faults. They'd have been married months ago if not for the shipwreck. Now, the wedding was drawing nearer, and Harriet was at the Whitfields' home almost daily, seeking advice that Ellen felt ill-equipped to supply. She was 30 now, and despite her mother's coaxing, it seemed increasingly unlikely that she'd stumble into marriage and motherhood. She didn't mourn this as she knew she should, but was very glad of the path Harriet had chosen. It was so much more bearable to have her married to Will, a sister, than to lose her to a stranger, removed to another town or colony, her letters growing more distant with every year that passed. "Why don't you come in for supper?" she said now. "There should still be biscuits, if Will hasn't polished them off." "No." Harriet glanced back at the cottage. "I'm sure you're tired, and I mustn't stay out late." "Nonsense! It's still early." Ellen had little idea of the hour, but it was not yet sunset. "I shall be quite jealous if you spend time with my brother but refuse to do so with me." Her tone was joking, but there was a truth there all the same. "It's not that." Harriet's eyes met Ellen's only briefly. "I'll give you all the time you desire, and gladly, but not here and not tonight." For the first time, Ellen wondered if something else was wrong with Harriet, beyond the constant shadow of her grief. "Harriet, if there's something—" "I'm fine," Harriet said, her smile unnaturally bright. "Or at least I shall be. Visit me tomorrow? I've a lot to tell you." The smile cracked, and she looked deeply exhausted. But not now. A dozen questions bloomed in Ellen's mind. For once, she left them unspoken, and said simply, "I'll come in the morning."